Hey everybody. Hi. How's it going? How are you? Wow. Okay, so it's good to see you. Yes, welcome. Welcome to the show. Jill and Eva and Mother Nature. Stephanie Cake is here, yes. Mark and Myra and Quilted Soul, it's great to see you. Crosley, it's great to see you too. Cranky, it's great to see you. Jan and, Susan Armichael, hello. Drink Wine and Solin and Ivy. And Kenny subscribed to Tier 2. You've been subscribed for 18 months. I really appreciate you, Kenny. You know I do. Bonnie's here and Garnet Letters. Podma's here. So, I hello to everybody. And thank you for, oh man, it's really like muggy and sweaty in the office. Oh God. Thank you for being here tonight. Tonight's show was, was moved from last night. And I'll tell you why, and I got a funny story for you. So I submitted a paper to Uncoverings, and I didn't talk about it. I mean, some of you know about it, because if you subscribe to this show, you get access to the Discord server. We call it the Disco. And it's where this, like, really incredible community, it's kind of like, the show is maybe the glue, right? But, like, the Disco is like, I don't know, the icing on the glue. Gross. What do you think? Yeah.
I was gonna say, it's like the icing or the sprinkles. I don't know. It's the sprinkles. It's the confetti. It's the party.
It's the party. And so it's like we got the cake, we got the party, and it's like the confetti. I don't know. But anyway, people communicate and talk. So yesterday, so usually the show's on Saturday night at 8 o'clock, and so it's Sunday at 8 o'clock Central, and so that's different. But people who are in the Disco know, because I let Robin and the gals know to make the announcement that the show is going to be moved and the reason why. And I didn't mention why before because, well, under-promising and over-delivering, I've been a little better about that, actually. I have. And so I didn't want to mention it until I did it. So Uncoverings is the journal of the American Quilt Study Group, AQSG, and I really love that organization. And, M. Hicks and myself and Molly, we were all there last year at the seminar, and there's a seminar coming up, and Cake's going to be presenting, and I don't know, just like a bunch of nerds, including me, are getting more involved in that organization, and it's a cool thing because the person who started it, who passed away, Sally Garut, she started it in 1980, and she wanted it to be a thing, an organization where people who weren't academics necessarily could do research and publish things, and basically create the field of quilt scholarship. Really, there wasn't one, right, until she started AQSG, and I think that's so badass. I think that is very cool, and so that's the founding director or the founding person. The founder really sets the course, right, for a thing, and so I love that. And so anyway, AQSG is cool, and they extended the deadline for papers for next year, for 2024, and I've never done this before. So this is Uncoverings from last year, 2022, and the next issue comes out at Seminar in Louisville. Hey Gamer Granny, thank you so much for subscribing. You have been subscribed with Prime for 8 months. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. Bird Nerd, subscribed to Tier 2. You've been subscribed for 21 months. You're on a 21-month streak. Girl, to all my subscribers, thank you so much. Hey, Kellen McGuire, it's so good to see you. Either I haven't seen you in a while, or I've never said hello to you specifically, but I say hello to you now. Myra, thank you so much for subscribing. You've been subscribed from the beginning, you and Bird Nerd. And so many others. Hey, Robin. Jade and Sarah subscribed. Thank you so much. You have been subscribed for 17 months. That is when someone's like, how old's your baby? And you're like, 18 months. It's you're almost like an 18-month baby. I don't know. Anyway, so this is the journal, and here's the thing. So it's a peer-reviewed journal, and I had to look it up. I ain't scared. I ain't ashamed to say I don't know how to do this. I went to grad school for writing, but I went to art school. It was an art school for writing. My thesis was very creative. It was a lot of work and it was really hard, but there was no footnotes, okay? There's no footnotes. There was no endnotes. There weren't guidelines for how to format it. It was do your creative joy, you know, and I did, and it was great, but like, this is totally different, and I really want it, you know? And so, you know, there's just it's a different game. It's a different game writing something like this. I mean, I've published a lot of writing about quilts, you know, but it's all commercial stuff. It's like curated quilts, quilt folk, I mean, quilty. It's just different. It's just different. I've never done a footnote in my life in any of the things I've written on quilts, right? Until now. And this is the paper. And it is over the word count. I'll just put it this way. I'm not going to even say it because it's embarrassing, but it's over the word count, and the word count limit is 9,000 words. And I'll tell you this much too. Hey, oh my God. Karen Quilt Texas just resubscribed for a month. Listen, or no, maybe somebody's given out gifts. Myra gifted out a gift subscription. Thank you so much, Myra. That is amazing. You have given gift subscriptions. This is your third one, and you just gave one to our friend Karen, and that's awesome. Karen, you get entered in the giveaway, and we're going to draw tonight. Did I even tell you that? But we forgot to do it for June, and I have a really great giveaway, and so you get entered into the giveaway, and you can use all the fun emotes, and maybe we could put some welcome baskets in the chat for Karen. That'd be great. Yeah, it's a good time. It's a really fun thing, and you support the show. And so if you like this and you're like, oh, I really like what's happening here, you know, subscribe. It really makes a big difference in what we can do, you know. So anyway, so thanks everybody for moving the show, because I decided to do this paper thing, to submit this thing, when I heard they extended the deadline, which was in early June, and I didn't have anything. I mean, I wrote about quilts in the fine art world, right? And I had done research about it, but I hadn't written a word. And like, I don't know, it's a lot. Like, I have worked so hard, like every single moment that I have had for the past month, when I'm not doing this show or doing something that actually makes money to make a living, or like really like errands that I had to run, had to do, like picking up a prescription. Like, I've been here working on this thing, and like, look at this. And I'm telling you this not because I want like praise, but just like, I'm literally telling you this because I wanted to give up so many times. I told Cake there were like 3 very specific, very solid, like, I can't do this. Who do I think I am? I don't think this is worth it. I think this is ridiculous what you're trying to do. And I almost gave up, but I just like would not. I just would not, you know? And if anything, that's what I'm proud of myself for, because I've never done anything like as hard, like in this particular way. Anyway, look at this. So that's why I'm telling you, because it's like, you can do it too. Like you can do more than you think you can do. You just can. I know it. I know you can. I mean, look at this. Like, look at this. This, I mean, this represents so much, but like this, look at this thing. Like, there's piles of this, like all over the office. And it's like, the highlighters, like I had highlighters in my pockets when I did laundry once this month. Yes. Oh yes. I did laundry and there were highlighters in my pockets. That says a lot. Okay. But you can do it. You can do whatever it is that's hard. You can do it. And it doesn't mean it's going to get in. That's the thing. Like, it might not get in, and there's problems with it. You know, I actually forgot, like, anyway, the point is that I made the deadline last night at 10:30 p.m. I clicked the upload button. Deadline, midnight, July 1st. I mean, that's how tight, that's what it took. And what I was gonna lead with is that there's a gal who works here. And by the way, Jay Danster and Jan Make Stuff and Myra, maybe I mentioned the other two ones. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you so much. You're the OGs, man. The last thing I'll say is that I was gonna lead with how this gal. Hey, we did a hype train. That's so cool. She's here on the weekends. This other gal, and we see each other. I mean, we're like the weekend warriors, you know. But I always feel kind of embarrassed because, like, she works so like she's so focused. And she just has her laptop, and she kind of moves around on this co-working floor. She'll like be at the window, or then she'll be at the, but we just like, we hadn't really met, for like many months. We just like, and sometimes I'm loud and I don't know, I'm like talking on the phone and so today I come in and I turned in the thing, but this office was such a mess. Like, it was insane. It was like a maniac lived here, and she did. So I had to come in and clean up because, I mopped. Like, I was like, I have to just like, it was part of the process, So I did all that, and I passed through the kitchen, and she was like, hi, are you okay? Are you okay? It's so hot in here, oh my God. But she's here, and I don't want to open the door because I'm being loud. Anyway, she was like, are you okay? And I was like, she said, I heard you crying. I thought I heard you crying yesterday. And I was like, oh, well, yeah. I probably was. I clearly was. I don't know at what point I was crying that she heard me. I don't have any idea because I was just like, But I was like, that's so kind of you. I'm okay. And I told her what I was doing. She's like, that's amazing. And she's like she's amazing. She's like a textile curator, but she's like, no, not a textile curator, but she does like, she did museum studies, and she's doing this like oral history, anthropology thing. She's making a book. And anyway, so we had a nice talk. Her name is Bonnie, and she's delightful, and she really checked in on me, man. Thanks, Ellerhold. It's great to see you again. Thanks, everybody. Hey, Jill. Jill says, I'm in grad school again, listening to a classmate talk about getting a paper done. It really, hey, Michelle, just such a crack up, I can't even tell you. Thank you for listening to my story. I had to share it with you. And when I moved the show to tonight from last night, I hate doing it, but I was like, no one would be more supportive of me finishing this and turning it in than the Quilt Nerd community. I was like, once I tell them, like I want to tell them, and so I knew that it was, it was worth it, and it was worth it. So we shall see. Anyway, thanks everybody. Cake, how are you doing?
Good. I'm proud of my friend Mary.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Now, I know how hard you've been working, and it's been longer than the nerds know, but it's amazing to me that you did this.
Thanks.
And
Thanks. That's great.
Yeah. And just to clarify, it won't be in the journal this year.
No.
It's the 2024 one. Yeah.
Correct. Which is very good, which means I have a year. If they accept it, there's a whole lot of time to work on it. To be honest with you, at the first, I was like, oh dear God, like getting it together. I'm not always so, sharp, but I just didn't understand. And so once I understood, I was like, no, it's next year in like Tarrytown, New Jersey or something like that for the next seminar. That's when the paper would be presented or something. So yeah, it's next year. So that's great. If they accept it with its warts and all, it's like totally fine. But I don't know.
So if you're not a member of AQSG, or you are not planning to go to seminar, because we do know seminar is a little bit more expensive than your other events.
It is.
But
no doubt about
it. Start saving up.
Yeah.
You can be there when Mary presents her paper.
Listen.
In Tarrytown.
Marytown. Oh, no. Listen, I'm telling you. Listen, no. And I'm not saying that just because I don't know. And but I'll tell you this much. If it doesn't get in, it's okay. Because like I said, literally the thing I'm most proud of is that I fucking did it. I fucking did it, man. Crazy. Thank you, Bonnie. I love you and support you as well. Who wouldn't? You people are amazing. Okay. I'm just so... I'm schwetzing? Okay. So, Cake, do you have a Dunton report tonight? I hope you do. Do you? Can you come up with one? Can we take a cake break? Let me put it that way. Okay. All right. Good. So here's what the show is going to be tonight. Here's the show. We are going to watch some of the tour that was filmed when Jill and my mother and a number of quilt nerds were at the New England Quilt Museum just about a month ago, a little over a month ago. So when we were there at the New England Quilt Museum, we had a VIP tour. The museum was closed, but Pam Weeks and the lovely people at the NEQM opened up for the Quilt Nerds, right? And so people met us there, nerds met us there, and we had this wonderful tour. And it's about an hour long. And that's I think that for this show, I mean, just trust me, what can I say? I don't know how I make these decisions, but it's a content decision, editorial decision. I think that's a little long to watch it. So I've got 20 minutes of that to start. And then, and so we've got 20 minutes of that tour to watch that I recorded on my gimbal. So we'll watch that. And then I've got a couple other things. We'll see how it goes. I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, I kind of just want to hang out. And I don't, it's Sunday night, so, people have things to do and feeling however you're feeling there at the end of the weekend. But we'll see how far we get. Yeah, it's just good to not be doing that thing. So we start with a new, Bertha Stangy. Bertha Stangy is on the list. We've never talked about Bertha Stangy, not really. And then there's this wonderful artist, Amanda Robles-Gordon. And Bertha Stangy and Amanda are such different artists, but they're so very talented. So I thought like putting them together would be really cool. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, we'll see where we get. Cranky, oh, I love you. Cranky says, I'm used to watching weird long YouTube stuff. An hour is nothing. There was a live streamer who I listened to while I cleaned up the office today. She streamed for almost 4 hours, which is unusual. She usually is like 2.5 tops, 3 hours, 40 minutes. I loved it. I love long live streams from people that I love because it's great. Okay. So, Kate, as we were talking before the show started, I gave you some links. None of them probably make sense. I just pasted them into the thing. But the links are, this is a book, and I don't think there's a link for this for you, but we're Abe Books affiliates, and I believe that we have a link for this book. If you want to buy this book, then use our link for it, and it's good for the show. An Evolving Vision, the James collection. So Robert and Artist James, they founded the International Quilt Museum and in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I'm going there on Wednesday because the board meeting is next week. And this is a new book, and it's really good. It's so wonderful, beautiful pictures. And unfortunately, the quilt that you see on the left crosses the gutter. That's the name of that gutter. And so, oh wow, cool. So unfortunately, that's got that crease in it. But I like to switch things up. I like to change the vibe, right, with the intro quilt every show, and also mix up time periods and the eras that we look at, because that's just very nerdy. And I really, something like this, we haven't looked at in a while. And what this is the front and the back of one quilt. And I noticed this first. This amazing chintz, this partridge, like a partridge in a pear tree, basically. This quilt is dated to, the fabric is dated to 1775. 1775. That is 200 years older than when I was born, and some, because I was born not in 1975, but pretty close. That's amazing to me, right? Peacocks. Oh yeah, they're peacocks. Yeah, very good. That's what I do. I hadn't looked, but you're right. So toile. It's not chintz. I might have said chintz, but it's toile. And so 1775. Wow. And then this is the front of the quilt, this square and a square. And I mean, that fabric, that brown is just yummy. I love it so much. It's such a great brown. It's so good. And with the orange, possibly made in Berks County, Pennsylvania, between 1810 and 1830. That is an old object, relatively speaking. Relatively speaking, it was made like yesterday in terms of like the time-space continuum and the age of the earth. But to us, it's really old, No one who was alive when this was made is now alive, to put it in a very weird way. But yeah, it's very interesting. And so it's cotton, it's hand-pieced and quilted, 84 by 71 inches. And I looked for the figure number in the text, and I don't know. Let me just see. I didn't find it right away. Just a second. This book, by the way, was a gift from a nerd. The lovely Marianne. Wait, no, Mary. Yeah. People give things to the show, and it is like, whenever you give a book or something to the show, you pay it forward, because then we share it, right? The show, we share it, so everybody gets to see. Anyway, so that's the intro quilt. That's it. It's $17.75 for the fabric, $18.10-ish for the quilt itself. The quilt world is fascinating, and it's really old, relatively speaking. So get that book. It's excellent. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. I want to look at Bertha Stangy. We're going to watch the video. It's ready. I'll get it after the cake break. We'll watch the video and hopefully talk about Amanda, because she's very cool. And she's so different from Bertha, but also similar in ways, because she's a brilliant artist, but she's contemporary, and she's a young woman, and she's Puerto Rican and Caribbean. And yeah, we'll see. But Bertha Stangy, hang on, hey Quagga Cat, thank you so much for subscribing. You've been subscribed for 17 months. You're also almost an 18-month-old baby. It's really exciting. I'm gonna do a poll. I'm gonna do a poll just for fun, because polls are fun, and I just haven't done them. Haven't done much lately. So we're gonna do a poll, and the poll is going to be who has heard of Bertha Stangy? I just think polls are fun, and Twitch is where you can do the polls. Like, you can engage in the polls. So if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, I'm so glad you're watching. But the show is really like made in Twitch, so come over and do that, because it's a good time. Hang on one second. Let me do this. I mean, Bertha Stangy's, the reason I want to do the poll is, it's kind of like she's one of the most famous quilt makers, one of the most like published, talked about streamers, quilters. And so it's an interesting thing to sort of see how much she's gotten out there among like the quilt, the people who are interested in quilt history. Okay, here we go. Here's the poll screen. Do a poll. By the way, I never shared the poll results from last time. Have you ever made a quilt with matching shams? Apparently, 44% said no, but they're into it. They might do it. 19% said that they had, and 36% they never have. Okay, and they didn't really necessarily want to. Okay. Have you ever heard of Bertha Stangy? Yes. Nope. But I'm about to. Great. For 5 minutes. Okay. So the book that we're using for this particular segment is this one, the Briscoe Center book, Comfort and Glory. And it's quilts from the Briscoe Center in Austin. This is a very, very beautiful book, and I urge people to get it. I really do. The pictures are gorgeous. The layout is fabulous. If you ever make a quilt book, just do me a favor. Don't cock the quilt images to the side. Don't ever, you know what I mean? Steph, you've seen those, right? Where the image of the quilt is like at the diagonal, or it overlaps with another one. This is bad for live streamers who want to show quilts on their show. So Bertha Stangy, and this is a picture of her. There's a Quilter's Journal article that was written by the great Joyce Gross in 1979 about Bertha Stangy. And this is available to read on the Quilt Index. So you can go to quiltindex.org and search for Bertha Stangy, and you can read this really good article about her. I want you to notice the quilt behind her on her right. So this one. We're going to see this quilt in color here in just a minute. Bertha Stangy was from Chicago. We'll hear about her. I won't tell you too much now because we're about to learn. But I do want to tell you that this quilt, Gazelle, is one of the first quilts that I ever saw. Hey, Elle Riggs. Yeah, you know. Susanna. Susanna's here. Hey, girl. It's one of the first quilts I ever saw that made me sort of pause and say, like, oh, I've never really looked at quilts. Like, I've grown up around them, but I've never really looked at what's out there, because this quilt by Bertha Stangy is hang on, I want to get a little smaller. Sometimes I get small, but I'm not small enough. Okay. I've seen this in person because it's at the International Quilt Museum in Lincoln. I mean, it's so cool. Like this, let me just see the whole thing again. It's so cool. And it's so adorable. It's like engineered perfectly. But just take a moment. Like the shape of that gazelle. I just looked over at Stephanie Cake and she's like this. I was like, look at that gazelle, and she was like, you know, I mean, right? It's so delightful. But it's also so like elegant, you know?
They're gazelles.
That's what it's called. The quilt is called Gazelle.
Okay, yeah, okay. I would have thought that they were deer, but I guess gazelles are kind of like deer, so.
Yeah, are they?
Shaped similarly.
What is the genus that is deer?
I don't know. I think there are things that look like deer that are not deer.
Exactly. Yeah, probably lots of things. Elk, you know, I don't know. But gazelles it's a very beautiful animal, right? Very graceful, very, very dumb, you know. I love deer. They're one of my favorite animals because they're just like humans. They are very beautiful and lovely, and they're very dumb. You know, I mean, it's like, oh my God, what a paradox. Okay. But also, as we look at this, first of all, the quilting, okay? The quilting. It's very small. It's very small. It's very fine. It's very hand quilted. And as far as I know, Bertha Stangy, who I should tell you lived in Chicago, she died in something. This quilt was made, I'll tell you this much, it was made in 1930, in the 1930s. And we're going to look at quilts that she made that were made between like 1933 and like 1948. It's interesting. The sort of the latest one. The latest in the series that we'll talk about. So, she was just amazing. And as far as I know, what I was going to say is that she did her own quilting, as opposed to the other Bertha, who was living in the area at the time, Bertha Mextroth, who did not do her own quilting. She made amazing quilts, but she didn't do her own quilting as far as we know. We know that she didn't. So another really fun thing to write about or look at is like a tale of two Berthas, right? A tale of two Berthas, Bertha Stangy and Bertha Mextroth. And I got a Dutton thing for you, Cake. Well, I mean, Dutton adjacent. So Stephanie's doing research on Dr. William Dutton, and he was friends with Florence Petto, right? And so was Bertha Stangy. Bertha Stangy was like super friends with her. So here's the thing. So there was this other, Florence Petto. She was super amazing at quilting too, and Bertha was like really good friends with her, okay? So what the hell was going on, pardon my French, in Chicago in the 1930s with these ladies who were doing insane work? Also, there was a third one, Mary Gasbrecht. Mary Gasbrecht was in Chicago too. So I'm wondering, like, there is a chance that our two people that we're looking at could converge, because Bertha Stangy, Bertha Mextroth, and Carolyn Ducey at the Quilt Museum brought this up. She's like, wait a minute, what the hell? And I was like, oh my God, because these women knew of each other. There's no way. Bertha Mextroth had an exhibit at the Century of Progress. Bertha Stangy was in the papers all the time for winning contests all the time, and she was really good at making quilts. And she was friends with Florence Petto, and Petto was friends with Dutton. It's really, I mean, there's gotta be
Yeah, they're and I have heard that he may have corresponded with Bertha Stangy. I've never heard anything about
really?
Bertha Mextroth. Yeah, because I did look. When you started looking at Bertha Mextroth, I was like, okay, I gotta look and see if Dunton. But yeah, he supposedly corresponded with Bertha Stangy, but I haven't been able to find anything. But yeah, he was friends with Flores Petto. Flores Petto was a huge gossip.
Yes, that's right. That's right. I'm sure they may have talked about Mextroth like, oh, what a weirdo, you know, because she really was pretty weird. But like, yeah, I just feel like these people. I mean, look, the quilt community, the quilt world is small, and these people are all in Chicago. Like, they knew of each other for sure, but like, what did they know? What did they know? Look at this one. Here's that lotus quilt. So Stenge, here we go. Let's just take a moment here. Here we go. You ready for this? Okay. This book it's so heavy, it might actually not work on my book holder. So I'm just going to hold it. I'm going to hold it like this, like we're in choir. I saw Sherlock. Girl, how are you? Hold on. Okay. You know they did. Oh, Jan, they did. Okay. The Winedale Quilt Collection. So I'm reading from Comfort and Glory. The Winedale Quilt Collection. I don't know much about what they're talking about specifically with that particular collection, but doesn't really matter terribly much right now. Contains 7 quilts made by the award-winning Chicago quilt maker Bertha Stangy. Born in 1891, died in 1957. The Briscoe Center acquired 6 of these quilts in 2008 as part of the Joyce Gross Quilt History Collection. Oh wow, she had 6 Stangy quilts? Damn! Somebody got to do a thing on Joyce Gross.
Joyce Gross had the goods. We got to get down to the Briscoe Center because she had the goods.
Yeah, we really do. Yeah, we really do. We need to, I don't know, maybe we need to do like a cake and fawns like across America, because I need to go to Radcliffe. You know, we got places to go. Okay, to do this research. Okay, the Quilt Conservancy donated the 7th Stenge quilt, Lotus, this one, okay, I'm zooming in, to the Briscoe Center in 2008. All 7 quilts included in this essay are in the order that Stenge made them. Okay, let's just appreciate the border. Just the border. I mean, I have trouble with everything. And this is that. Like,
it reminds me of The Very Hungry Caterpillar.
It does.
Which, I don't know if do you know Eric Carle's?
Yes.
Yeah.
It does. It really does. And you know, here's the other, I mean, here again is this charm. Like the gazelles and those little squares, like these little, these look like chiclets to me, just like little chiclets, you know? And then this looks like the Hungry Caterpillar. It really does. And they're just, and this motif. So cute. So cute, you know? So, California-born Bertha Stangy was well known and highly praised for her needlework skills and imaginative quilt designs. By the way, I probably won't read all of the text because there's a lot of it, which is why this book is so awesome, but we gotta get the goods here. Formally trained in art. Also, Bertha Mextroth was formally trained in art. I don't know about Gasbrook. I don't think so. Formerly trained in art, Stenge moved to Chicago in 1912, where she married attorney Bernhard Stenge and raised 3 daughters. She began quilting in 29, while in her late 30s, an activity that became an essential source of artistic inspiration for her. In a 1933 letter to Women's Home Companion, Stenge hints at the importance she placed on quilt making, urging other women to, quote, take time out, if not daily, at least weekly. Well, that's good advice. I like that. And she said that so that you could, quote, keep in touch, unquote, with your talents. Such investment in self-expression, she suggested, would have a big payoff. She said, quote, when the time comes that women find themselves unnecessary to the welfare of the family, interesting, they can easily slip into other joyful work and not become superfluous. A neurotic, a prying mother-in-law, or a member of the gossipers' chorus. Like her best friend, Flo. Oh my God. Interesting. When the time comes that women find themselves unnecessary to the welfare of the family, they can easily slip into other joyful work and not become superfluous, neurotic, or a prying mother. Oh, interesting. I was like with her. I was like, yes, like, you know, she's like, chicks, you know, do it for yourself. And I was like, oh no, that's, I don't know, it's something different. Anyway, Stenge's original designs. You want to see another one? Oh yeah. Oh, Rachel's Wreath. This quilt, I can't. Hey, Yakamo. I mean, Stenge's original designs and superb needlework, produced some of the most creative quilts made from the early 1930s through most of the 50s. Stenge regularly entered her quilts in county and state fairs, winning dozens of ribbons, including at the prestigious Canadian National Exhibition in 1936 and at the 1940 New York World's Fair. In 1942, Stenge won the Grand Award in the Women's Day National Needlework Contest for her Victory quilt. Yeah, so that was World War II, right? It's amazing. Accepting her prize at Madison Square Garden in a ceremony broadcast over NBC Radio. Okay. That's amazing. Wow. Her quilts received national exposure at exhibitions including 1941 at the University of California Art Gallery, which I believe is in Berkeley, and at the Art Institute of Chicago, and she was in the Ladies' Home Journal and Chicago Daily News. They announced that they put her, the headline was Chicago's Quilting Queen. And so the reason that she's on my mind is that she makes an appearance in this paper because I talk about quilts in the fine art system, and so there's this really amazing essay by Susan Bernick called A Quilt is an Art Object When It Stands Up Like a Man. What Bernick does in this essay, she identifies different quilt cultures, 3 of them. She talks about the traditional quilt culture, she talks about the art quilt culture, and the feminist quilt culture, and how there's these clashes. But the thing she says about the traditional quilt culture is the people who were making quilts for a very long time before the art establishment was quilts are art, and then it was well, yeah, and the traditional quilt culture, the reason that the art world and the quilt world there's really a clash sometimes because, as Bernick points out, quilters had their own language for what made a great quilt or for what made a quilt art. And the thing is, when Bertha Mextroth and Bertha Stangy are talked about in the papers, they are called artists. And when they are given awards and stuff, it's Bertha Stangy, an exceptionally talented artist, makes her quilts with blah, 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 blah. And it's just interesting to this is in the 1930s. This is way before, the feminists took a hold of the quilt as this icon of feminist struggle, which I don't mean to make light of that, but it's they were no one has ever recognized the art of these things. And it's well, actually they did. They just didn't have it at the Met. Exactly. We had our own language and our own superstars and our own world, our own culture of what made a great quilt great and who were the people in this culture who were amazing at it, we didn't need the art world is what Bernick's talking about. Quilters didn't need that. But then anyway, so I talk about that in the paper that I wrote. And so, so she was on my mind. So anyway, so this is called Rachel's Wreath, and it was 1935, hand and machine pieced. Oh, yeah, hand appliqued, stuffed work cording. Yeah, somebody probably asked about that in the chat. Made in 1935. Okay, let's get back a little bit. I mean, she won every contest she ever entered, basically. That's basically what happened. God, this quilt is amazing. I mean, holy crap. I was looking at the quilting, but the stuffed leaves. Lotus may have been the 4th quilt that she ever made. It's her adaptation, of Wig's Defeat, an old and much-loved quilt pattern whose name grew out of a political dispute finally settled in 1844, so forth and so on. Stenge's version added the bold scallop border that enhances the pieced curves. The pattern became popular. It was reproduced often. Wow. I mean, there's so much information here. It's so great. So she had a one-woman show at the Art Institute. 17 quilts in 1943. Yeah. Amazing. Okay, let's take a look at some more. I gotta watch the time. Okay, so one of the things that's great about this book, quilts that I scanned in, these are, I hadn't seen them before. Because there's a few Stenge quilts that get reproduced a lot. Like the quilting party is everywhere, you know, like you've seen some of these, right? Oh, what's the poll? What happened with the poll? How many people had heard of Bertha Stangy? 73% had not heard of Bertha Stangy, but they now have, and 27% had. So about a quarter of people had heard of her. Interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, so this one is called Tiger Lily. And I hadn't seen this one before, you know, but the Briscoe book has it, and the Briscoe Center has them. By the way, there's no book on Bertha Stangy. So we play that sound when there's like a really cool research project to do. If you wrote a paper about Bertha Stangy and it was awesome, like, superstar. Do it. Look, she was on NBC at Madison Square Garden. You've got plenty of research material to find. Oh, somebody did a thing. Hold on. Hey, Envivixty. Thank you so much for following the stream. Welcome to Quilt Nerd. Okay. Bertha Stangy entered her Tiger Lily quilt. Wow, that's some intense paisley, Bertha. In the Trapunto Works section of the Kentucky State Fair. Wow, in September 1941. Those Kentuckians, they didn't come to play. It was judged most unusual and awarded a blue ribbon. Tiger Lily followed Rachel's Wreath, the one we just saw. There's fine applique, lavish dimensional design, stuffed work. Contrasting inset piping. This is a small quilt, they say, much loved for its original and meticulous workmanship. So it's 63 by 79. Well, not that small. Oh no, the hand quilting appears to have been done by the same professional quilter Stenge hired to do Rachel's Wreath. So no, she did not do all her hand quilting. I said I didn't know for sure, and I was wrong. I don't know if she did any of it, but it'd be interesting if she didn't, because Bertha didn't. Kathy, I know you're out there. Who's this woman? Who's this woman who's doing quilting for Bertha Stangy? Maybe she was... Do we have a name? Hold on. Rachel's Wreath. Who quilted it? If this woman isn't listed, like, I flag on the play. You know, like, come on. Hold on. Just a minute.
You know, while you're looking for that, Mary, it really surprised me how many of these big name people that we associate with,
I know,
either mid-century or the first quilt revival, did not actually quilt their own quilts. Like Marie Webster, she quilted, but once her workshop was opened, obviously she farmed out everything to her ladies.
Yes.
I don't know that any of those people really, like, their names were ever, you know, published. And I mean, they're just following her design, so it's kind of like, you know, do they get a mention or not? Or they're just doing the production work, although it's work. So
yeah. And like, it makes the quilt. It's like, I mean, look, the top is like, if you've made quilts or you know about quilts, it's like every piece is important. But I mean, it circles on Gazelle, they're perfect. I mean, they're just like unbelievably amazing.
I mean, it may not be artistry because it's not their own design, but it certainly is craftsmanship.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah, it's so skilled, right? It's amazing. So this quilt, by the way, like, deceptively extraordinary. When I saw this, I was like, this is Bertha Stangy. Like, okay, Bertha, I guess you were, you know, kind of slacking that day. But it's called Stars with Wavy Sashing, and just like, consider the sashing and like how she made that happen. I mean, I think that seems cool. She didn't line up this. She didn't line them up. No, she did. Okay, so it's so tight on my screen. It's so large on my screen. I can see like where it did, but it totally. Well, yeah. I guess there's places where it doesn't totally match. A Bertha, like right here. Whoops. Oh no. Sorry. But no, it basically is like this pure stripe that she did with the fabric itself. Incredible. Padma says, how about an award for the weirdest quilt? I wouldn't mind getting that. Exactly, same. But anyway, so here, Stenge kept a roster of professional quilters she relied on to finish her quilts. For Rachel's wreath, her quilter filled every open space with this and this. There's no name here. You know what? I'm annoyed at this point. Like, I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed at this point because these are nameless people. I mean, okay, like, is that okay? Like, I don't know. Like, this, what do you think about that?
I mean, today it's not okay.
Today it is not okay.
Show at any of the major shows, if you didn't do your own quilting, then you need to say who that person is.
God, yes.
But yeah, I mean, like, this is such a weird thing to talk about because we talk about, like, women's work and, you know, Anonymous and, you know, somebody reminded me that this weekend of Anonymous was a woman.
Yes.
Like, all of that stuff. And then we look at women who did make a name for themselves in this industry and we're like, how exciting for them. But then again, there's these other women that didn't get their, you know, it's really a double-edged sword here that we're talking about. Right.
Because, like, the studio model is, like, invoked when people talk about this. Like, you know, people have people work on their stuff and those people don't expect that, you know, that Jeff Koons will list their name when they're building his, like, armatures for his stuff. Like, that, you know, so maybe that's fine.
Because that person's just a welder. That person did not come up with the idea of the balloon dog. Yeah.
And see, once again, it's like, what the hell? What space does a quilt occupy in this, like, art thing? Because, like, it's like, well, like, that person made a huge part of this thing, but if they didn't get credit, then what does that mean? Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, we gotta get moving, guys. I'm thinking about here. I don't want to keep it too long. Okay. So anyway, so 1940s stars with wavy sashing, the graphic quality of the fabric, the vertical set. It's a great quilt. Oh my god. Of the wavy lines, it gives the quilt startling boldness, reinforced by 30 bright stars set against light-colored backgrounds. She hired a professional quilter. Okay. A little bit more, a few more here, just to see this pageantry, right? Serpentine and stars. 1948, 82 by 99. It's interesting. I mean, to see the whole thing on your screen, like, you know, to see the full quilt's important, but you just don't have any idea until you really look closely what's happening here. There needs to be, she made a lot of stuff. There should be a show. Where's this? Did the IQM do a Bertha Stangy show? Quilters once known and never acknowledged. I mean, that's the question, Jade Ansura. Like, maybe they didn't want to be. You know, maybe they're like, oh, no, I'm not, like, you know, I don't, this is the gig for me. Like, I don't want people, like, calling me, you know, just like, no, please, like, give me my check. You know, just like completely respect that. Yeah, I mean, it's just, but if the environment had been different, would they have said yes? It's like, were they sort of trained basically to, like, not ask for credit, but they actually really wanted some? Or no? Or were they just like, no, it's not a big deal. Like, I'm just doing a job. Don't worry about it. I don't know. This isn't my favorite one, but it's still extraordinary, you know. She liked those hot colors, like bright pink and bright. Okay, two other ones. Oh God, this one. This is amazing. Dove and Ring, 1953. I haven't even really looked at this yet. 80 by 82 and a half. So, Kenny asked a great question. I wonder how she would communicate the quilting expectations to the quilter. Very interesting question. I agree. Did she give them sketches? You know. So here's what they say. In 1950, despite competition from a New York decorator, quilt maker, and quilt historian Florence Petto successfully bid at auction on several pieces of a red copper plate toile. This is great. This is so cool. In an effort to persuade her friend Bertha Stangy to use vintage fabrics in her quilts, Petto sent her a box of vintage patriotic fabrics plus 2 long strips of the toile. Pito identified the fabrics as amorini and medallions, an 1810 French toile. Wow. She later called dove and ring. What are those cupid? What are they up to? I don't know. They're okay, people, break it up. Oh God, look at this. Ugh. Oh, let's look at it down here. Hang on. Ugh. Are you for real? I mean, that is fussy cut. Is it not? Oh, for God's sakes. Stenge returned all the fabrics to Pito except for the toile, which she incorporated into this quilt, finishing it in 1953. The quilt has had various names, The fabric's images are typical of the neoclassical style, cherubs and so forth. Stenge ingeniously incorporated the toile throughout her quilt to use its designs to their best advantage. Inside the medallion, portions of the toile. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So it's a medallion. Okay. Inside the portions of the toile appear in the quilt's 13 regular and 4 square blocks. Paired angels appear in the 5 rectangle blocks. Okay. Oh yeah. All right. Okay. And single angels in all squares. The ringed classical head appears only in the 3. Okay. Yeah. So my question is this? Oh God, those are those white pieces. Oh God, it's all, oh my goodness. It's all pieced, isn't it?
I was going to say, I think the border around, like this, it's almost like a double border around the pieces of toile. And it's like she's matched the fabric very well.
Oh my God. Okay, here's what I thought. Yeah, she did have free time, El Riggs. I thought that the piece of fabric ended with the pink. Like before the white. No. The piece of fabric that she cut is this, you know. And then she added the dark pink and light pink, pieced border, and then the white, and then oh my God. Stenge brought extra color and definition to her quilt by adding lively flowered sashing around yes, it is. It's a fabulous choice. Like, it's such a great choice, this sashing. It's so, I think. I mean, it's weird, but it looks like an urn, or like, it's just so, it's so good. It's so good. This is my favorite Bertha Stangy quilt I have ever seen by a mile. Yeah, it's genius. It's just, and look at the border. Ugh. Forget it. Look at those little diamonds. Wedgwood, yes, Myra. Interesting. I don't, upon my answer to you, I have no earthly idea how she did this. I don't know. Okay, last quilt, and then we're going to do a cake break, and then we're going to come back and watch a video. This is called Mexican Dancers. Bertha Stangy, 1953. And this one, I mean, it looks great. Doesn't it look great from afar? Looks great up close. What do they have to say about this? More fussy cutting. Interesting. We've got these little gals. Yep, she did this. She fussy cut printed fabric. Yep. Oh, she acquired her black, red, blue, green, and red fabric during a trip to Mexico. So, wow, groovy. It features 6 different cartoon-like representations of Mexican men and women wearing older traditional clothing. Yes. Yep, 16 blocks containing 101 separate pieces. Each block contains 101 separate pieces. Each one. Yeah. Yep. Professional quilter. Quilting pencil marks are still visible. Anyway, yeah, it's great. This is a really, that's cool piecing. That, like, 6-patch on the side, like that. I don't even know. I don't even know how to describe it. Like this looks like a half square triangle, right? Like, You can see like with the quilting, one half of it is totally white, and then this other half is this pieced. I mean, it's a neat shape. You don't see that a lot. And I feel like she did that a lot with these tiny pieces, just cool shapes. Yeah. Anyway, brilliant. So that's Bertha Stangy, everybody. Kind of cool. Playing cards. Yeah, they do everything. Yeah. So there you go. Little Bertha Stangy for you. And now 100% of you know who she is. Before, only 25% knew. Now 100% of people watching this show know who Bertha Stangy is. That's awesome. Okay, Cake, I'm going to take a quick break. If you need a break, you can take a break. Okay. So I'm going to go to this, and we're going to hear from Cake, and I'll be right back. Okay. Take it away. I'm still here. Hold on.
Hello. Oh, done sparkling.
Yes, the sparkles.
Yeah, I actually don't have a whole lot about Dutton today. I have taken a little bit of break the last few days because my museum days got pushed back a little bit because of some scheduling conflicts with the folks at the museum. So I decided to take a little break, and I have been watching other quilt things. Actually, one of the things I did today while I was working on a project is I caught up on the Quilt Folk Adventure series. And hey guys! So the Quilt Folk Adventure series, I don't know, I think some of you have definitely been in those classes with Jenny Smith and Kay Walsh. The day that they presented the Hawaii one, which was the most recent one, I had something else going on, so I wasn't able to watch the first day. And the second day I thought, well, I won't watch that one either because I'm sure I missed a bunch of stuff on the first day. So I'm just catching up. And, I thought I knew stuff about Hawaiian quilting, and I did. I knew a few things, but my gosh, there was so much more to learn, and I'm only a few hours in, but highly recommend if you are not part of that adventure series, and are interested in Hawaiian quilting, I think you could buy the workshop as like a standalone workshop. It is so worth the money because it's just been really amazing. And, all of the historical stuff they talk about, but also the techniques and just looking at how they put Hawaiian quilts together. Because I think in my mind, I was kind of like, oh, they just cut a big snowflake, and they unfold it. And yeah, it's not that easy. I think I'm going to do the one project that they did. So in that particular workshop, they did a cushion that is the traditional Hawaiian quilting where they, where you cut it. It is almost like a paper snowflake, the way you cut it. And then they had like a full-size quilt. I don't think I'll do the full-size quilt, but yeah, definitely that cushion. And I think the design is the breadfruit design, which I think is a common starter Hawaii quilt pattern because it's got kind of some large round shapes like the breadfruit. So yeah. Oh, awesome, Crosley. Good. Yeah. So yeah, I haven't even picked fabric, so I'm like way behind. But such a fun thing. And then a friend of the show, Quilt Nerd, Dee Marie, reminded me recently of the Great American Quilt Revival and a PBS thing that Georgia Bonesteel put out. And it, let me see, I think I copied the link. Oops, wait a minute, let me grab the link for you guys. It's still available on PBS, and I was able to watch it for free. So let's see, I'm pasting it in here. As Myra was saying, it's not just a starter, but it is a classic motif. Absolutely right. That is something that they said, the ulu or the breadfruit. But she said I think the one moment, and Myra, I feel like you've got to have taken this class because I know you're very into Hawaiian quilting. She had said that it tends to be the one that people start with because it is sort of the easier one, but it is absolutely a classic motif. And there's, they go through kind of what the series of the classic flowers and just other symbols, I guess, things that are symbolic of Hawaiian culture and heritage. So it was so cool to learn about. But yeah, it's Georgia Bonesteel. So yes, they had the Greater American Quilt Revival that I put the link in. That she talked, because it is presented by Georgia Bonesteel, and I think her husband directed it. But you got to see like some clips of her when she was doing her lap quilting series on PBS, like back in the 70s, and it was just a really, really great. It's like about an hour long. But the thing that I really loved about it is the big Smithsonian controversy, which if you've been around a little bit, you know. Oh, Dee Maria's here.
Hi, Dee Marie.
You know about the controversy, and I knew about the controversy. But essentially, if you're new here and you didn't know about it, back in, Mary, was it the 90s?
Yeah, like 90,
the Smithsonian
late
did
90s.
This bad thing.
Yeah.
But they decided to reproduce several of the quilts that were in their collection, one of them being Harriet Power's Bible quilt. And they reproduced it. They had them made in China, and they sold them here, I guess, through the Smithsonian Foundation, I guess, through their gift shops or whatever. And the quilters lost their damn minds. And, you know, and rightly so. You know, there's something sacred about Harriet's quilt. I mean, not just that it's a Bible quilt, but there's something sacred about that. It's like not one that you just reproduce for the heck of it.
Right, like who did they pay, right? Like, no.
Yeah, like who do they think they are, kind of thing. And I knew that the quilters were very upset about it, but what I didn't realize is that Carrie Bresnahan, who is a very well-known person in the quilt world, she is responsible for I'm drawing a blank. The big quilt shows down in Houston.
Festival. Yeah.
Quilt Festival, yes, down in Houston, which is a big thing. She testified before Congress about the Smithsonian debacle. I did not know this. And they had the women the quilters that went and protested with their signs in front of the Smithsonian. And the Smithsonian was basically like, well, we've never had any protests, and now we have a protest, and it's quilters.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, and it really was about standing up for something that they cared about, and, you know, standing up for a piece of history that shouldn't have just been so carelessly reproduced. And the fact that it was being reproduced in China, you know, probably by very poorly paid sweatshop labor was like another slap in the face. You know, so it was really interesting today that I watched that video and revisited that controversy and really got all the details about it. So highly recommend, if you have some time, to check that out. I think if you, like, I was able to just put in that, Maryland Public TV when I went to that link. So hopefully if you have a local public television station, you'll be able to watch it too.
You know what we'll do for the next Sunday Social? We'll watch it. Because if you're a tier 2 or tier 3 subscriber, there's a special stream every month, the last Sunday of the month. And because it's a private stream, like, that's totally cool. Like, it won't be like a copyright issue. So we'll watch it together. That would be a really good time. So so this month, the last Sunday of the month. That's awesome. Thank you so much, Cake. That's great. And yeah, there's a good Uncoverings article about the Smithsonian thing. That's really good. And there's a great picture of Carrie and Nancy at doing the congressing, like lobbying, in the Teresa Duryea Wong book about festival, like the history of festival. They look like such badasses. They're like, excuse me, and like all this stuff. It's great. It's great. Yeah, it's a really interesting moment. Cool, man. Okay, so Mad Quilter, hey, each surfboard has a tropical icon cut into it. I don't know what you're talking about, but I love it. Surfboards and quilts, man. Makes me think of Hoffman Fabrics. Okay, so we're gonna watch a little bit of this tour. I mean, I know it's been a month. I know stuff's been happening.
I'm so excited. Jill kept talking it up, and I'm so excited to see.
Yeah, it's really great. And so Pam Weeks is the curator of the museum. She had begun her talk, and I thought I had hit record, but I hadn't. So I missed the first 8 minutes of what she was saying. Some of it was welcome. Some of it, I apologize, but there was a lot going on. But I rectified the situation, and that's fine. But so she's talking about potholder quilts, okay? And we're going to look at this. So it's just the beginning. It's the beginning of the tour. She's standing here. That's the didactic thing on the wall. And so she's going to take us through. And Pam is delightful, and she's great. And Jill, by the way, is Jill Alex, and she is a quilt nerd, and she helped get this whole thing going. She helped sort of do pre-production of the show, of the trip to the New England Quilt Museum. She was there with me and Cake for the Folk Art Museum show. And we appreciate you, Jill, very, very much. And now that the paper's done, I think we can do our meeting. So anyway, so Pam is great. And so the reason I mentioned Jill is because she volunteers at the museum. So we appreciate you, Jill. Okay, so let's listen to Pam Weeks talk about potholder quilts. Very interesting stuff. Okay.
These were made for Civil War soldiers. And that was the key to the importance of the work that I was about to do.
So she's not talking about potholder quilts being made for Civil War soldiers, not like all of them or anything. She's talking about this specific thing. Okay? All right, here we go.
It turns out that if you need to do a group project, and many of these quilts are results of collaborative quilting, whether it's for fundraising or to commemorate an event or to give a beautiful quilt, although some people don't think they're quite as beautiful as other people do. You can send everybody away with the directive, make as many blocks as you can, 1 foot square, quilted and bound. When you come back to our meeting of the Lowell Ladies Soldiers Aid Society, we'll have a stack of blocks, and all we have to do is sew them together to make a quilt.
So that is one of the things. Yeah, go ahead.
Is there supposed to be a video? Because we're still looking at the cake break.
You are?
Yeah,
Oh no!
We can hear Pam talking, but we're still looking at
Wow. Yeah. That's gonna be better, isn't it? Isn't that better? Sorry. Okay, I'll take it back just a little bit. I'll dive back. Sorry about that. Thank you, Stephanie Cake. But it's good because I was gonna stop anyway and say that the quilts that you're seeing now, that you couldn't see before, potholder quilts are, as we'll learn, they're made, they're like quilt as you go. It was like kind of like another way to name potholder quilts, which means that they are small squares, blocks, that you quilt them as you go. You quilt each block, and then you attach all of the little smaller pieces that are already quilted, right? So instead of making a whole quilt top and then quilting it, you quilt as you go. I mean, it's really that's what it is. And so this is her collection. Pam has, this is all her collection of that kind of quilt. Okay, let's continue. Sorry about the visual there.
You can send everybody away with the directive, make as many blocks as you can, 1 foot square, quilted and bound. When you come back to our meeting of the Lowell Ladies Soldiers Aid Society, we'll have a stack of blocks, and all we have to do is sew them together to make a quilt. And I published Civil War soldiers quilts, I think in 2011, based on not just the potholder quilts made for Civil War soldiers, but the other quilts that we, through our research, discovered were covered with signatures. That's the thing that many of the potholder quilts have, is signatures. Many don't. But it became a collection exercise. It became a networking exercise in how many other people know about potholder quilts. Turns out there were 3 main collectors who were either making them or collecting them. I became very friendly with them, and I said to those 3 women, you guys need to write a book. And it was like they had planned this. Nuh-uh. You go home and write the book. And 20 years later, I published the research in a book called Portable Patchwork.
Portable patchwork.
It's way sexier to say portable patchwork than potholder quilts.
Yeah, true.
So what I love to do in an...
Look at that camera work. This person knew what her audience wanted to see. The sound is not perfect, but I hope you're doing okay.
Is give you as many examples of different things as I can, and also to make it a time span exhibit. So we have potholder
eating
quilts
chips
made of individually made blocks as early as 1843.
That's Slim Quilt Pants and Max on the left. Quilt Nerds, right there.
To the work of an art quilter, which is the pink and white quilt. She makes components.
Saucy Stitcher, Ivy Kadivy. My mom, somewhere, Jill.
Completely finishes them, and then finds different and interesting ways to sew them together. And in between, we have a raffle quilt that was made by the Genesee Quilters in Genesee Valley near Rochester, New York. This was their raffle quilt in 2019. And even though Chris Wickard is a dear friend and knew about my work and decided this would be great for a raffle quilt, and I bought $40 worth of tickets, she did not guarantee that I win the quilt. But the owner of it was very generous and did loan it for the exhibit. Not all of these quilts are mine. Many of them are. I actually wanted to make one, and as much
Not all of the quilts are Pam's. Thank you, Pam.
as I hate crazy quilts, I chose to make a crazy quilt because I had a stack of really eccentric ribbons. My earliest ribbon on here is dated 1964, when I won a blue ribbon at the Belknap County 4-H Fair for my first sewing project. All the way through my whitewater canoeing and my AQSG ribbons from Study Center Leader.
Wait a minute, ribbons? I didn't get a ribbon. Molly's texted me. She's like in a cave in Iowa or something. She's like camping or hiking or something. So I know you're not watching, Molly. Did we get ribbon? It's like ribbon on your badge or something? Oh, I didn't save anything.
I thought it was ribbon like winning.
Yeah, exactly.
There's another canoeing one. I won at my local quilt guild best of show for a couple of times.
I don't have ribbons like
and then
that.
all my ribbons from the Vermont Quilt Festival and the Paducah Appraisal Program and on and on. But what I was playing with in this exercise, I love embroidery, but I also wanted to begin to try to look at potholder quilts as art quilts, and I wanted to play with a different color binding on each side of the potholder quilt. So the earliest quilt that we've recorded with Quilt as You Go techniques is dated 1837 to 1838.
Wow.
It was made for a woman getting married, and her husband immediately moved her off to New Orleans from Boston. The quilt is covered with marriage advice, good wishes for a safe journey. And the story of that poor dear is that within 10 months, she'd given birth to a son. She died the next day after her childbirth. Her husband died 2 months later from probably malaria in New Orleans. Her son and their worldly goods traveled back to Boston, and that quilt was donated to the Concord, Massachusetts Museum by her great-great-niece.
Wow.
But every one of the quilts in this room can tell a story. This is called the...
So, I mean, it really is amazing. All of the quilts in this room tell a story, and all of them are made with this potholder method. One block quilted, added to another block quilted. Fascinating. Thanks, Steph. Yeah, I was like, yeah, Pam, everyone go to the New England Quilt Museum. Everyone go there. Oh, Jill, you need to tell, I guess I could email her. I need to know the quilt folks. The list of them, because I got the approval for that. Okay, so anyway, I gotta do that.
Portland halves.
But I can't find the list.
Because collector Deb Grana found both halves.
Slim quilt pants looking awesome.
Because
Bam, right there, left hand side, or my right, your left. Sorry.
Collector Deb Grana found both halves in different places at the same yard sale. Wow. For some reason, the owner of this quilt cut it in half.
Amazing.
And bound it. And if you look, the red and green star is blue.
That's crazy.
And she did the research, and I have to read from the label. It was made for the Reverend John Chickering, and the block contributors were wealthy women of the Portland, Maine community.
That's...
Many, many, many inscribed quilts in the mid-19th century were made for esteemed members of the community. Many of the Baltimore album quilts, not in the Quilt As You Go, but they were made for Methodist ministers. Many of the New England inscribed quilts were made for ministers. We don't always know if the minister was leaving the congregation or if it was just a fad thing to make a really beautiful quilt for your favorite minister.
Look at that, split in half. It's kind of awesome. make a really big quilt and split it in half. So like, it's you know what? I love it. Oh my God. Here we go. Are you ready? Locket quilts. Do it. Somebody do it. Locket quilts. Make a fortune. Make patterns that are one big quilt. Cake, you get first crack at it if you want it, because you could actually make them amazing. I mean, a lot of people could, but locket, like the locket, like the two parts of a locket.
Like the best friend locket?
Yes. I'm just saying.
That's what I do. I invented Post-its.
Okay. Seriously, locket. Okay.
During town. Mary, we're going to skip down here because the big white quilt has one of the coolest stories yet.
By the way, what I'm going to do for the next segment of this, sorry, I keep stopping. We're going to just keep going. But I did it at 1080p. I'm going to do the high-res version because we want to see more detail. But I just had to make sure that it was ready to show tonight, and it takes a long time to upload. But I'll make sure that when we see this, the next half of it or the rest of it, it'll be a little higher res. Okay? Yeah.
I have been tracking the location of this quilt because it's a potholder quilt, and a Mrs. Weeks made 3 of the blocks. The first time I saw it, it was in a book published by an English quilt collector. And we could see from the inscriptions that many of the people had added dates to their inscriptions. I contacted her, and she said that she had sold the quilt to a couple of collectors who a few years later gave it to the Royal Canadian Museum in Toronto. That museum contacted one of my friends who was in the New Hampshire Quilt Documentation Project and asked her to do some research on it. And she found that someone in the town of Wakefield, New Hampshire, had published a history of the town.
Wow.
And her sister had published a history of the church. And when she went digging, she found out all the information about the women who are documented on this quilt. The Wakefield, New Hampshire Congregational Church had a group of women who, for more than 180 years, have been working to raise money to support the church. The group was founded in 1856, and the church records that the historian found document the beginning of the organization. It disbanded 2 or 3 times before 1899. And in 1900, it was refounded as the Parish Helpers. When I called the church, when the quilt finally came into my possession after it was deaccessioned and went to auction, they were thrilled because they said, we still have very active members in the Parish Helpers.
Wow.
And when I gave a talk in this room about collaborative quilting, I let the ladies in the church know, and 3 of them came down.
Oh my God.
Elizabeth, I forget her last name, of course, Elizabeth Fogg, came down and looked at the quilt, and she had tears streaming down her eyes because some of the women on this quilt were either her great-grandmothers or her great-aunts. And she's been helping me with the genealogical work on it. It's just the kind of story that a quilt can teach you after the research.
Oh my God, she knows the honk. That's right, we talked about.
Hold on, listen. It's just the kind of story that a quilt can teach you after the research. That is what it compels me to continue doing research. The quilt behind me is a reproduction that a group did inspired by my Civil War book. They volunteer as reenactors in Civil War encampments, and they made a reproduction of a Civil War soldier's quilt. Wendy Reed has a wonderful blog called The Constant Quilter. She made this quilt, Mary, and she made the quilt behind you. And if you catch the back of this one, you can show people what you can do creatively on the back of a quilt.
She made that looks. It's
wow. Amazing.
That's the back, y'all.
She's got a different large print on every one. And on the front, she has a lot of things that have to do with her state of Maine.
Wow.
So she's kind of memorialized her state. And she, this is an interesting one because she chose the binding for each block as the background fabric. So, as a different quilt teacher would have said, from the back of a galloping horse, you can't tell that's a potholder quilt because the binding is hidden.
Wow.
But every single one tells a story.
Where does she live?
She lives in Bath, Maine, and her blog is titled The Constant Quilter. That's right. She blogs about
Constant Quilter.
potholder quilts. She blogs about whatever current project she's working on. And she was one of the founding members of the Maine, it's not called their state documentation project. I think it's called the Maine Quilt History Project.
Maine Quilt History
That's
Project.
just been published in Lori LaBar's book about Maine quilts.
Oh, yeah. It's really good.
Generally, characteristic-wise, potholder quilts are easy to spot because they're bound with binding. But sometimes they are bound in a finish, not bound in a finish, they're finished with something called knife edge. And with knife edge, you take the top layer and the bottom layer and you turn them under to each other. And in this quilt, it's very hard to distinguish that you're looking at a quilt as you go project. Generally, potholder quilts are not heavily quilted. This is one of the exceptions. This one was made, can you read that label? What's the date that I put on there?
1850.
1850, circa 1850.
Saucy Stitcher, you supplied the date for that. I just want to say that. Thank you. Sorry. Okay. It's cool. Quilt Nerd like helped with the show. I mean, another did. Okay.
And the hand quilting on it is exquisite. Now, I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm
Wow.
the curator, and it's my quilt, so I get away with it. This quilt is interesting because it's signed on the back of each block.
Whoa, every block.
Every block, and she didn't finish it because some of the papers that she basted with the people's names are still on the back. This one did get inscribed.
Oh, yeah. What ink did they use? Is that a thing?
So what we consider India ink was available by the 1820s, and a dip pen. That's the thing that blows my mind. Is so many of these are so beautifully inscribed with a dip pen. Occasionally you'll see a blot, but not very often.
Have you ever
So I have
tried?
a question, Anna.
Yep.
So this is hand quilted, and you understand that mostly when people would be quilting in those days, they would be in a frame, right?
Could be.
Could be in a frame so that it's taut.
That's my
Yeah.
mom.
But quilt as you go.
That's saucy.
These
They're
are
in their lap.
They're in their lap. So is the quilting, did that affect the quilting on the back? Is it less even or not?
Not in this case.
Because I mean, I think it'd be kind of hard to quilt that densely and carefully with no stretching.
I have to disagree with you because the first few quilts I made, I quilted in my lap. And if you're holding the fabric this way,
you can
you
manipulate.
can get it taut as you do the stitching.
Yeah.
And you can actually manipulate the fabric
Right.
as well as your needle. And you
Right.
can do really tiny
That's
little
right,
stitches.
right. Probably, yeah, right.
As you're going along.
Yeah.
So the earliest reference written that we found was by a diarist named Persis Sibley Andrews Black. She was the wife of an attorney in Paris Hill, Maine, and she was very well educated for a woman who was born in the 1820s. And she wrote diary entries about everything, stating that she was never going to get, and then she did. Had read all his works by the age of 19, and she went on to keep this diary for the rest of her life. And in
Wow.
1848, she was invited to make a block, 1 foot square. My block and 6 others were all that were lacking to finish the quilt. It is the best work that I have done. Ulrich has used quotes from her diary, and other other female historians, especially. Actually, she's quoted quite a bit in a couple of professors who have published works on early education in the 19th century because she talks about the education of her children frequently in her diary.
I love that she was like, I'll finish it.
Exactly.
I mean, whatever.
Don't approve of it, but I'll
Hey,
do it
Stenge.
because I like Mrs. Davis so much.
Right.
We have a couple other examples, and I actually printed one from a newspaper from 1877.
Yvonne's
And
here.
I'll just read the end of it. A family loses their house to fire. Mrs. B thought what a valuable gift a good quilt would be. So she cut strips of paper, cut them in equal lengths, about 14 inches square, and sent them around to the neighboring ladies with the request they would piece a square of dark patchwork of any pattern and quilt and bind it. Then, when the squares were joined with a cast-over stitch, the quilt was finished and was very thankfully received. So a few people were writing about this method of quilt as you go in the 19th century. but they're very, very few and far between.
So it wasn't like a fad, right? Because there'd be more of them, like a crazy
No,
quilt or something.
we have documented a couple of quilts that were made aboard ship because you could work in small pieces.
Wow.
That is in the collection. Joyce Gross donated her collection to
Hello.
East Texas University.
Austin.
And that quilt is in their collection.
Interesting.
We just looked at the book.
So a little bit about the statistics. I've documented at this point more than 160 quilts. The 3 women who told me to go off and write the book said I'd be lucky to find 50. Really? But because of all the help that I had from my potholder posse, I got a lot of references. More than 80% of them are New England. It's a New England thing to finish a quilt this way. A few of them are made out of New England, and of the 75 to 80% made in New England, the majority are made in Maine or Massachusetts.
Interesting.
So it's a traveling back and forth. That quilt is kind of fun. It was made in 1928 for Mrs. Vaughn, and this was a really fun research project.
Hong Kong.
Because I didn't have a town.
Oh, gosh, sorry.
So I took 3 of the names and I went through Ancestry until I found a town where those 3 people were in the 1930 census. Then I worked backwards. I found everybody else in Clinton, Illinois or Indiana.
Interesting.
Indiana. And who knew that Clinton, Indiana, on the west side of Indiana, was a coal town until the 1920s and 30s. Many of their husbands were coal miners. The other thing that was really interesting about
I
this
love that
quilt
block. That block is great.
They printed a city directory for Clinton every year, and 2/3 of these women were working in dress shops, as maids, or as a book. There were 2 or 3 bookkeepers in this area, which surprised me that in this era. But then you think about it, when did the Depression start? 1927 or was it 1929? It was in a period of economic uncertainty, so they were out. And Mary, you have to catch the block that Burdella did.
I just saw it.
You saw
Burdella Brown.
Burdella made birds.
Here's an ivy. Georgia ivy. You saw it. Are there any backwards ends? And what is your theory on the backward end that shows up sometimes?
I forgot to ask.
Dyslectic?
Yeah, you think so?
I think so.
I mean,
because
everybody's
it
got like
reverses.
a...
Yeah.
You know, you cut it out and then you turn it over and it reverses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you get through it and you go, oh, I'm not taking that out.
Right, exactly.
So come on over and see the joke quilt.
Okay, yeah.
The joke
Yeah, the
quilt?
joke over
What?
here. It's a potholder quilt. Oh, yeah.
Kenny, are you still here?
Carl Hellbush
Oh, that's funny.
ended life as a very successful farmer. But at one point, he was a salesman for the World Herald, which was a newspaper in which town in Nebraska, Laura?
Omaha.
Omaha,
It's the
Nebraska.
Omaha World Herald.
The Omaha World Herald. And my theory is that when he sold you a subscription, you got a potholder.
Oh, yeah.
But then when he quit selling subscriptions, his wife had this box of potholders. And what do I do with my potholders? Well, I think it'd actually be a great picnic quilt.
Yes. Yes, it would.
Lay it on the grass, except the ants are going to come up through the holes.
True.
She tried to fix some of the holes, but the reason I call it my joke quilt is because it's a potholder quilt.
Yeah.
And she was one short, so she had to go back to the kitchen and grab the one she'd been using.
It's true.
And wash it and sew it into the quilt.
Funny. It's very meta, right?
And we dated it 1960 because that's about the time that the zip code was starting to be used.
Oh.
And
Isn't that
has
cool?
zip code in his address.
The zip code wasn't, a thing until the 1960s. So there's like the zip code. That's way cool. I mean, come on. We talk about like quilts being historical documents. Like, that's a really good example. This quilt is awesome. This quilt is awesome. Huh.
Anybody have
How'd you get that? How'd you acquire that?
potholder posse?
Oh, wow.
I got a phone call from Texas. Pam, I found a potholder quilt.
You're never gonna believe this,
Do you
Pam.
want it? And I went, yeah.
Wow.
What I regret is the dealer had a second one that was made of white crocheted potholders.
Wow.
And this was above my budget, so I could only afford the one. But looking back, I should have bought the second one.
Wonder where it is now.
Somebody's collection.
Huh.
Somebody's collection. Anyone have any questions about Quilt As You Go, history of potholder
Those
quilts?
beautiful
Can you
people.
talk about that one too a little bit closer? You mentioned it over there, yeah, but
The art quilt?
yeah,
Oh,
I
yeah.
just wanted to get a close up of it and
So Pat LaPierre,
And that's where we end. That's the first chunk. Good stuff, right? Really good stuff. Yeah, it's a good video. Yeah.
I love the potholder quilt. And it's actually in her book. And I remember just poring over the picture going, oh my gosh, somebody's dumb husband made them make this.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody's dumb husband. Oh God. Yeah, totally. So yeah, it was a really good time, and meeting more Quilt Nerds was incredible. And so yeah, so we're up. Time tonight. We're good. I thought it was like I could hang out all night, but I am still catching up on sleep. So we won't look at Amanda Robles-Gordon totally yet tonight, but I'll give you a taste. And we'll watch the rest of the New England. We'll do that on the next time we meet. And next week we're off. This is this new schedule, to like to make life. We just, the first week of every month is a dark week. It's dark week for Quilt Nerd. We're going to do that so that other things can happen. Because, wow, I could do this show every day, and there's a lot to do for it that doesn't get done because the show needs to happen. And anyway, the point is that so the first week of the month, Quilt Nerd is asleep. Show-wise, well, it's not live, but there's still shows. There's still going to be a show at 7:00 on Tuesday night. There's still going to be a show at Saturday night at 8:00. It'll just be reruns. Like, who doesn't do that? If Seinfeld can do it, we can do it. If The Big Bang Theory, I don't know what you watch, but reruns are a thing, so I can like program that to play. And so tune in, man. Do what you do. Have your Tuesday night, have your Saturday night, but we won't be live. And so that's good. That is a good thing. Even if we were in the past, this week I go to Lincoln, and I'm in Lincoln from Wednesday to Sunday for the board meeting for the International Quilt Museum. And so it would be difficult to do stuff anyway, but that's just a coincidence. So the first week of each month, there'll be reruns. And then hopefully I'll get some great content while I'm out there, get some video and stuff so I can share it with you when I get back for sure. Yeah, Kate.
And so we're back on the 11th, right?
Correct.
That will be the next following. Yep.
Correct. And when we are back on the
was just a
11th,
question.
yep. And we'll watch the rest of the NEQM, and we'll talk about this lady, Amanda. Yeah.
And we still have a drawing to do tonight.
That's
before we
right.
hang out.
We do. What are we drawing for? That is a great reminder of some great stuff that we do on the show. And all I want to say about this is that this person, Amber Robles-Gordon, who is Puerto Rican and Caribbean, or descent of Puerto Rican and Caribbean descent. Look her up. Here's the thing about her. She's doing, sometimes you just see new shapes. Like I see new shapes with her. You know, Cake? You know what I mean? It's like, oh, hang on now. And they're quilts. She's stitching. They are works of art that reference quilts and use quilt techniques. You can see. And she's very interesting, and like looking at Bertha Stangy, and looking at her, like so exciting, so dynamic to see the difference in these women's experience, their work. I love it. She is extremely talented, and we're going to look at her again. But like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, that's new,
It looks like she's using collage techniques on top of regular fabric manipulation and
I love this. Like,
and
God.
What is her name again?
Amber Robles, Robles, Gordon. Amber Robles-Gordon. So we'll check her out. There's stuff on YouTube. Don't read ahead, or actually do read ahead. Do whatever you like and learn about her. But we're going to talk about her on the 11th, and we'll watch the rest of the New England Quilt Museum tour, and I'll upload it in super high res so we can really see all the details, because I definitely got them. Okay, let's do this giveaway. Let's leave this gorgeous thing up. My God. Yeah, very political work, very interesting. Okay. All right, let's do this. Okay, so here's what we're giving away. Here's what's being given away. Okay, so this is there's two things. Okay, so number one, there's a back issue. I had like 3 Southern California issues of Quilt Folk in my stash. You know, I had a stash when I was editor. I got some extra copies. Don't have that many left, I'll be honest. But the Southern California issue is one of my favorites. Latifah Saphir, a great cover, photographed at the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. Always been quilt friendly. Just a great episode. Great story on Latifah. This is great. Anyway, so you're gonna get that pristine, never been used. I guess I'll sign it. I mean, that's okay. And then this quilt art, okay? Quilt art, Nottingham Castle Museum. This was the exhibit catalog from 1988. And I have 2 copies of this. And the reason I picked it for the June giveaway is because a very interesting, incendiary piece of writing from Penny McMorris is in this. I mean, I would describe it as sort of incendiary. I mean, in this, Penny McMorris, who wrote the art quilt, we're running out of time, but she's a huge figure, a big figure in the art quilt genre development, whatever, in the 1980s and 90s, and she's just a big deal. And she's like much respect, but she does this sort of historical overview of quilts, and then she talks about the art quilt. And you remember that I read that thing from Michael James, Michael James, who was like, let me tell you what the art quilt can be. It can be cool only if, professional trained artists can. It was crazy, right? She talks about like the different kinds of quilters, and she's like, there's the traditionalists, there's it's pretty insulting. Like the innovators are the ones who are going to like push the quilt form forward. It's insulting. Depends on who you are. Depends on what you think. Depends on your values. I don't know what insults you. Believe me. It's none of my business. I'm just minding my own business over here. Anyway, it's fascinating, and it's not something you're going to come across or really notice unless somebody the Quilt Nerd person tells you about it. It's very interesting, and the quilts are way cool. It was an art quilt show in 1988, and there's look at these wonderful pictures. Oh my god, it's great. I mean, it's really great. It's great. It's so great. So that's a giveaway. Okay, Cake, the randomizer. We're using the randomizer. Who will get the June giveaway?
Drum roll, please. It's Mishral.
Mishral! Yay! Mishral.
Mishral is here.
I think I saw her too. Hey, Qua Qua. Word and Bird Nerd. It is a British book. Yes. And it's an awesome giveaway. Thanks, Ivana. I picked it myself. The randomizer. Yes, the randomizer. Mishral, I'm so happy. I'm so glad you won. And by the way, the last giveaway, the person who won, June is a blur. I couldn't do it. Yaman, I don't know if you were here. I submitted a paper to Uncoverings. Oh yeah, here it is. All I did. Anyway, I can't talk about it. I did. But anyway, so this Mishral, make sure you email quiltnerdshow@gmail.com for your address. We got to get your address. Sometimes I have giveaways, but I can't mail them because I don't have the address of the person who won, and I'll write you a little note. And by the way, tier 2 and tier 3 subscribers get a little note from me. And Robin reminded me, I am behind. So if you are a tier 2 or tier 3 subscriber, you got to make sure that we have your mailing address, because I need to catch up on my postcards, and now I can do it. So I really want to do that. Mishral, it's so fun to win, and you won. That's awesome. Okay, so are you still here? Did she see? Or he, I don't know.
I'm not sure, but I think she's still on. But, I know sometimes I walk away from the computer, so.
Yeah. Yeah, Kate really slacks around here. I'm just like, where is she? Anyway. Well, I don't know about that, Ivana, but I worked my ass off, and I wouldn't quit. I didn't quit, damn it. So, that's it for me tonight. And Cake, thank you so much. You're the best.
You are also the best, Mary.
Thank you so much. There are so many bests. So you all are all the best as well. Okay, good night, and I'll see you. We're off next week, but Tuesday night will be a great rerun. I'll pick something a good show to rerun, and Saturday night too, and then we'll be back live on the 11th
with some awesome, dope shit. Okay. Bye, everybody. Love you so much. Okay. Bye. See you, Shug.